The battle for Libya may be in its final hours. On Sunday, 6 months after the opposition to Muammar Gaddafi took hold, rebel forces entered Tripoli facing little opposition. Within hours, Gaddafi's son and heir apparent was under arrest. Gaddafi's personal military detail had surrendered, and thousands of people were celebrating in Tripoli's central square. For more this morning, we're joined by CBS News military analyst Mike Lyons. Mike, good morning to you.
Good morning, Terrell.
For weeks, it looked like a stalemate in the civil war in Libya, and then all of a sudden, rebels moved through with little to no resistance into Tripoli. How did that happen?
Yeah, it sure did. It looks like they had some great training that took place on the ground. They coordinated finally the air campaign that's been run by NATO with maneuver on the ground that they just hadn't done before. So clearly there's trainers there. They're doing things. They coordinated these attacks. To move in on a brigade of about 2,500 professional soldiers like they did to puncture a hole and get through there showed me that they've had some extensive training.
You mentioned NATO. How much did NATO have an involvement in this?
Oh, no, clearly they had the air campaign, and that tipped the balance in the favor of the rebels from the very beginning. I mean, anytime the other side came out, poked their head out, there was an airplane ready to shoot them down, whatever the case may be. Now the mission's going to change much more to this urban area. We'll see what NATO's mission is going to be going forward. It's going to be much more difficult for NATO to get involved in an air campaign that's going to be focused in a city.
Did NATO violate a mandate? They were there to essentially protect civilians. When they took a side, or did they take a side, did they violate their mandate?
Well, they clearly took a side. They possibly violated that mandate, but I think that in this point, all allies involved thought it was for the right thing to do. I think from their perspective, they had to first come in, put the no-fly zone in the area, and then use offensive operations to help the rebels.
President Obama has been criticized for leading from behind. Do you think that criticism is fair?
I don't think so. I think he got involved, at the right time. We couldn't have argued if he'd gotten involved sooner. The rebels would have done any better on the ground. It would have taken him this 6 months for training for them to get to this place where they could have defeated those Gaddafi forces.
How will rebels bring back Libya now? There's a lot of celebration going on.
Yeah.
There's jubilation in the streets. When it comes time now for the transition, how do they go about doing that? This is the hard part.
Yeah, this isn't the beginning of the end. This is actually the end of the beginning. There's many more phases that are going to come in this part of the operation. I mean, for example, the Gaddafi forces still own a certain part of the town in Tripoli there. If they decide to come back and counterattack against these rebel forces and they put their guard down, I'm afraid we could still have bloodshed in the streets. There still could be much more to come with regard to the final resolution.
And NATO said that they will continue their mission now to protect civilians, but does that change now?
Yeah, it does change somewhat because it's going to be much more difficult to do that in that city, as we talked about before. But then also, we've got to put people there or find out very quickly about all the munitions that have been lost in Libya for the past few years. I mean, if we have unaccounted for weapons from a security perspective, I'm afraid that's going to make that region much more unstable as other countries decide they're going to do the same thing.
Do you think American boots will be on the ground in Libya?
No, I don't think so. I think that we'll take a much greater backseat than we're taking right now, potentially other European forces, and only if the rebel forces ask, but I don't see us putting American soldiers on the ground in Libya.
CBS News military analyst Mike Lyons. Mike, appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.